Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. So Chapter 2 Season 7 is only a few days away. We're less than a week, so I wanted to make a video talking about what I would like to see from Season 7, because Season 6, it's been an underrated season. This wasn't the best season, wasn't the worst season. I think it was a lot better than Chapter 2 Season 5 or a couple other seasons before that, but we'll get more into that. Let's talk about what I'd like to see in Chapter 2 Season 7. How can we make this game great? So let's talk about what this season did right. What it did right is right off the bat, it hit really hard because the hype was there. We had a huge event, and you know what? I'm not gonna lie, I did like the live events better than I did the solo event, but the solo event was something different. It was something cool, and we had major storyline development. That's something that I love to see, especially at the beginning of the season. It was a storyline development that we've never seen before. We actually had the foundation, we had Jonesy, we had dialogue. It was a really different event. It was kind of like a trailer and event meshed into one, and I have to say, one of my favorite events of all time for Fortnite, but again, we'll leave that up to whatever you think, to be honest, because everyone likes different events, right? So that brings me to my first point that I want to make is we need events again. We're only a few days away. The chances of us getting an event are slim to none, and I am thinking that we're not going to get an event. But we do want to see events again. Fortnite used to have an event every single season. That's what built up so much hype throughout the season. You saw everything in the map, like little changes to the map leading up to the event, like just what we saw in Chapter 2 Season 2. We looked at the agency. We saw these little things coming out of the water. It's little teeny tiny touches like that are enough to keep your player base engaged and keep them like, oh my god, what's this event going to be about? But now we're stuck thinking, like, you know what, like I didn't expect to get an event this season, especially since we got one at the beginning. And I'm not talking about the event like I said at the beginning, because I don't know, it's weird that way. I don't really consider it to be an event. Like, I'm talking about a big live event you can really look forward to. And speaking of storyline, there's so many little touches that Epic Games could do to really improve their game, like the weekly loading screens in the Battle Pass. There was so much, like Fortnite's the only game where it had their player base looking at loading screens and being like, what does this mean? It's telling a story. And that's what I love about it. I do want to make a video about these loading screens one day, but topic for another time. But there's so many little things that you can do, like little teeny tiny, like the updates were great this season. We had bi-weekly updates, I believe, around there. And regardless, we had a lot of updates, which was really nice to see. But they could do more of those updates and like little things, like moving just a couple things here and there. What we're starting to do to hype up the next season with the alien abductions are super cool. We need more of that. And to keep going, I feel like if you're Epic Games, that is not difficult to code at all. Just these little changes, like have something coming out of the water if you're going to have something to do with the water at the end of the season or next season. Like, you know, or maybe what they could have done earlier in the season is kind of little bit changes to the sky. And when you look up, you can see a couple stars or maybe something like shooting across the sky every now and then. You know, teeny tiny updates like that for players to look into and start talking on Reddit, start talking on Twitter, make YouTube videos about. It goes a long way. It really does. So storyline development started off really strong with that, but then it just completely fell off. It looked like we were going to have some promising stuff with Raz here, everything going on with the Spire, but nothing really came from it. I mean, it could next season, but it didn't give us really anything to talk about. We go, Raz is connected to the Spire. The foundation is stuck in there. We don't have much more than that, if that makes sense. And speaking of the Spire, at the beginning of the season, the map changes were actually phenomenal. I loved the new biome and everything, and I grew to not like the biome so much, but at the beginning, hit hard, it was different, everything worked out very well. But the only problem I have is it took over the sand biome, and the sand biome was one of my favorite additions Fortnite ever added. Like, and I know Chapter 2 Season 5, a lot of people didn't necessarily love that season because there wasn't a lot going on, but the sand was incredible. I'd love to see new biomes. And speaking of biomes, we need more map changes. And of course, I know that's a lot easier said than done, especially for a new season, but I think what they did in Chapter 2 Season 4 was the best way to go about it. So, if you remember the superhero season, we had a lot of changes coming in. We had gameplay changes, loot pool changes, we had different POIs changed to all match all the Marvel superhero stuff. The season launched, there was enough change to keep everybody satisfied, but it was a little bit underwhelming, but at the same time, I really enjoyed myself. What they did is, in the middle of the season, if you remember, they plopped down the whole Stark Industries biome, and you had that whole biome from Avengers Endgame. It was such a huge, it changed like, what was it? Pretty much the whole top right corner of the map. It was such a big map change in the middle of the season, and that goes such a long way. It feels like you're getting a seasonal update in the middle of the season, and that's what I'd love for them to do. And that's why I know that a lot of people wouldn't agree with me on this, but that's what I loved about Season X. Every single week, we had something different, something new, something unique to go visit. I was never bored in Season X. That was my one of my favorite seasons, actually. And I know that's controversial to say, but I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Ignore the mechs for a second. Ignore everything that was bad about that season. What they did with the map changes and the updates were good. They had something interesting and new to visit all the time, and that's what Chapter 2 Season 4 did, except obviously not to that extent. The Stark Industries biome coming in the middle of the season was something amazing, and I hope they do that. Maybe let's say next season we're going to get a couple UFO POIs. Yeah, they come on. Yeah, or you can have something coming down from outer space in the middle of the season, plop down on the map, give us something new to visit in the middle of the season. Don't put all of the changes at the beginning of the season, because they look at this season. It was pretty good for content, but the map stayed the same the entire time, and that's what I didn't like about it. So we do need more map changes, but I would like it to be spread out a little bit. And speaking of updates, the updates were actually very good this season. We had, like I mentioned earlier, I believe we had an update every 2 weeks at least, and sometimes even a week. The updates were filled with content, the updates changed weapons, the updates had balance changes, and that brings me to another thing that I was going to say, which I'm going to take a pause on the updates for just a second. Epic's communication and Epic listening to the community. They were so good at it this season. And you know what? I'm one of those people who understand why they would just want to completely ignore everybody, because this is one of the hardest communities in the entirety of gaming to please. It's almost impossible to communicate with us, and I'm on that side of Epic Games. Like, I'm totally on Team Epic there if they want to just ignore and do their own thing. But at the same time, it was nice to see, like, a lot of players were complaining about crafting. A lot of people were complaining about the metal parts and the bones at the beginning of the season. Epic was listening. Epic hotfixed it. They updated it. They were listening. Think about all the bugs that happened this season. We had a really fun one with the shockwave glitch, and I still hope that was still back, but there weren't any long-lasting bugs. Nothing like that this season. Of course, there's probably a couple that I'm not thinking of right now, but nothing significant. Epic Games was listening this season. They hotfixed. The updates were fantastic this season. And you know what? The gameplay for the season, it was great. It was great. The wild weeks were fantastic. We had all these new bows. We had all these weapons with gimmicks. And you know what? If you know me, I love weapons with gimmicks. Makes the gameplay a lot more fun to me. But the only criticism I have is I do miss snipers. I think it'd be cool if next season, I have a feeling they're going to get rid of bows, which in my opinion sucks, but I guess they serve their time, right? And I would be very surprised if they didn't bring snipers back next season, but I'd like to see them keep at least a couple bows. Maybe keep the shockwave bow just randomly in the loot pool, or you can keep going with crafting. And that brings me to another point, which is the crafting. It's tough to say with that. I liked it, but there could be improvements on it. I don't like having all the makeshift weapons where if I didn't want to craft, that means that I would be in such a big disadvantage with fighting. I think the problem was mostly the makeshift weapons, and that's another thing Epic listened to. A lot of people were like, hey, these makeshift weapons are absolute garbage. And then they updated it, they buffed it a little bit. They made them not like, because if you remember at the beginning of the season, you pick that up and you're pretty much dead. You could not fight with them. It's like picking up a gray pump, and I think that's probably one of the worst guns of the game, a gray pump. And then again, the makeshift weapons could be even worse for that. So regardless, again, Epic was listening. Epic's updates and hotfixes were fantastic this season. What was I just talking about? Crafting, that's what I was talking about. So if you remember last season with the gold, it was good. It was a nice, fun addition, but it could be better. I have that same kind of feeling with crafting, and I have a feeling that they are going to start using those weapon attachments with crafting. This is kind of like the testing of crafting, if that makes sense. So I'm pretty confident that Epic will get a handle on that, and the crafting will be a lot better the next season, just like it was with gold, because I do think that gold is pretty much perfect now. I can't really think of an update, so let me know if you think of one down below. But regardless, crafting does need an update, but again, it's not too bad. I would like to see the makeshift weapons go. They serve their time. I'd like to see an actual loot pool. Bring back some fun items like balloons, junk rifts, something like that. And speaking of the loot pool, that brings me to my next point. I have said this a lot on this channel, so I won't go too deep into it, but man, you need to separate the casual and competitive loot pools. I do not understand why Epic Games would keep it like that. If you want to separate for the people who are like sweat bad and sweat good, you can separate them so easy. Give the competitive a super boring loot pool, just like pumps and assault rifles and infantry rifles, and they'd be happy. Keep all the fun items of pubs, and that means you could add even more ridiculous items to pubs, like I was just talking about with the junk rifts. So even if you want airstrikes, you can add all the experimental items into pubs, and that would separate, that would create such a good balance between the player base. I think it's such a fantastic idea. And even if you want people to stay in arena, you can give, like, you've heard this idea before, you can give like rewards for arena. You could, I don't know, maybe like a back bling or even some special skins for give people a reason to grind arena. That way you can keep them out of pubs, and you can keep pubs really ridiculous. And you're gonna hate me for this one, I know you will. I have a couple people who actually I was surprised, because a couple people in my comment sections were agreeing with me. I think the meta is much better without the pump shotgun. I really do. The lever action was the best shotgun meta in Chapter 2 Season 5. With the lever action, it was the best shotgun meta Fortnite has ever seen. The lever action, the charge, the attack. Those three shotguns together were fantastic, and I did like the Dragon's Breath. I like throwing that in there too, but I kind of ignore it. If you bring that back and keep the pump shotgun in arena, you would separate I understand, like, I don't know if you want to separate the community, but man, I think it needs to be done. And I think that the game is much better off without the pump, especially just in pubs. And of course, arena, you can keep the pump. That's just my take on it. So again, I'd love to know what you think down below. I won't spend too much time on there, but I think everyone pretty much agrees that you should be separating the arena and pubs loot pool. I don't know. I really don't know why. I don't see a downside to it. I really don't. Besides, unless like the player base is that low that you can't split them. But at the same time, Fortnite's player base isn't low. It's not. I don't know. I really can't think of something. And guys, the last thing I would like to talk about is the animals that were added to the game. I actually really enjoyed the wildlife, but the only problem was it didn't do any, it really didn't change the game at all. Every now and then you had some ridiculous raptor kills, which made for some funny clips, but at the same time, I think Epic missed a big opportunity on being able to like ride those raptors. So we have the leaks of like kangaroos coming into the game. Sorry, spoiler, but I'm sure if you're watching this video, you already know. So we have like, it's almost confirmed that kangaroos are coming to the game. It'd be really cool if we could do something, if we could interact with them or ride them, or either that or make it much easier to tame them. Maybe you could like have the kangaroos stuff like some loot in their pouch or something like that that we could bring along with us. But there's more wildlife coming, and there's a big missed opportunity for Epic Games to like make them more interactive, if that makes sense. So I'd love to see more from that. The wildlife was a really fun addition. It's a lot of people were talking about just a Minecraft copy, but you know what? Games copy off each other, and besides, it's wildlife. It's not like Minecraft came up with that. But anyways, guys, that's all I have for you. That's all I have for you. That's my thoughts on how we can make Chapter 2 Season 7 a fantastic season. I actually really enjoyed the season. I really did. The gameplay for me was top tier, but there's a lot of things, like I'm really into the storyline. I'd like to see more progression from that. I'd love to see what's going on with the Foundation, Agent Jones. Give me something. That's why I love the Batman comic. It was fantastic. So yeah, I'm trying to think of any last minute things I have to say here, but the gameplay was fantastic this season. It wasn't my favorite season. Chapter 2 Season 2 for this chapter is probably my favorite season. I enjoyed Chapter 2 Season 5. Chapter 2 Season 3 was fantastic. So underrated. Ridiculously underrated season. But anyways, guys, I'm going to call the video there for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new here and you enjoy the content, please consider hitting the like button. It would help out the channel a ton. And subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, more Fortnite content, Smash Bros content, and some random content here and there. Just subscribe if you'd like to see more. If you'd like to use my supported creator in the item shop, it is CLEN-GOCO, #ad. I am a #Epic partner. A couple more things to plug. Follow me on TikTok at @CLEN_YT, and I have another channel. It's called Talking Fights with Kyle. If you like UFC, MMA, any of that stuff, feel free to go check that out. The link for that will be in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching again, guys. I will see you in the next video. Hopefully, I almost knocked over my water there. Ignore me. I was spreading my arms out. You know what? I'm going to call the video. Thank you for watching, guys. Take care.